Admiral Tae-sung stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise and stared at the massive station floating in space. It looked like a crystal flower, with 12 petals spreading out from a central core. Each petal belonged to one of the great civilizations that ruled the galaxy. The station was beautiful, but Tae-sung felt uneasy. This was humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Council, and everything had to go perfectly. "We're being scanned again," said Lieutenant Bora from her console. "That's the 5th time in 10 minutes. Tae-sung nodded. "Let them look. We have nothing to hide." Next to him, Yuna checked her tablet one more time. She was Earth's best diplomat, chosen specifically for this mission. She had studied every species on the Council, learned their customs, memorized their histories. She looked calm, but Tae-sung noticed her hands trembling slightly. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. Yuna smiled. "As ready as I'll ever be. We're about to introduce humanity to the galaxy. No pressure, right?" The Horizon's Promise docked with the station. Tae-sung, Yuna, and 4 other crew members walked through the airlock into a world unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The corridor walls shifted colors. The air smelled like flowers and metal at the same time. Creatures of every shape and size moved past them. Some walked on legs. Others floated. One being seemed to be made entirely of light. A tall insect-like creature approached them. It had 6 limbs and eyes that covered most of its head. "I am Attendant Crix. Follow me to the council chamber." They walked for what felt like hours through the station. Finally, they entered a massive circular room. 12 platforms surrounded them, each one holding representatives from the council species. Tae-sung and his team stood in the center, feeling very small. A booming voice filled the chamber. "Humans of Earth, you have achieved faster than light travel. This is why we have allowed you to appear before us. State your purpose." Yuna stepped forward. "Great Council, we come in peace. Humanity wishes to join the galactic community. We bring gifts of our culture, our knowledge, and our friendship. We seek only to learn from you and to share what we have discovered." Silence filled the room. Then from one platform, a creature that looked like a giant beetle began to laugh. Others joined in. "Friendship?" The beetle-like being spoke with contempt. "You are children playing with fire. You have barely left your own star system, and you think you deserve to sit among civilizations that have existed for millions of years." Another voice, this one sounding like music, added, "Your species still fights wars among yourselves. Your planet is divided into hundreds of nations. You are primitive." A third voice, deep and rumbling, came from a reptilian creature covered in scales. "We have reviewed your military capabilities. You fight with metal projectiles and nuclear fission. We abandoned such crude weapons before your species learned to make fire." Yuna's face remained calm, but Tae-sung could see the anger in her eyes. "We may be young, but we are willing to learn. Every species must start somewhere." The beetle creature, who they learned was called Counselor Rexath, spoke again. "You will start at the bottom, human. The Council has made its decision. You may exist in your corner of the galaxy. You may continue to develop. But you will receive no protection under galactic law, no trade agreements, no defensive pacts. If another species decides to conquer you, that is not our concern. You are simply too weak, too divided, and too emotional to matter in galactic affairs." The musical voice added, "Perhaps in 10,000 years you will be worth considering. If you survive that long." Tae-sung felt his jaw tighten. He wanted to argue, to shout, to make them understand, but he knew it would be useless. These beings had already made up their minds. Yuna bowed slightly. "Then we thank the Council for their time. Humanity will remember this day." "See that you do," Rexath said. "And remember your place, humans. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Without the Council's protection, you are nothing but prey waiting to be hunted." The humans were escorted back to their ship. Nobody spoke until they were safely aboard and the airlock had sealed behind them. Then Bora slammed her fist against the wall. "Prey? They called us prey." "They're afraid," said Yuna quietly. "That's why they were so harsh. They've never seen a species develop faster than light travel as quickly as we did. It took us only 200 years from our first flight to crossing the stars. Most species take thousands of years." Tae-sung sat in his command chair and stared at the Council station on his view screen. "Set course for Earth, and send a priority message to the President. Encryption level maximum. What should the message say?" asked Bora. Tae-sung thought for a moment. "Tell her exactly what happened here. Tell her the galaxy sees us as weak. Tell her we have no allies and no protection. And tell her to prepare for the worst. Because if we're seen as prey, someone will eventually try to hunt us." As the Horizon's promise turned toward home, Taesung made a private log entry. Today, the galaxy dismissed humanity as insignificant. They laughed at our weapons, mocked our divisions, and told us we don't matter. They may be right about where we are now, but they made a critical mistake. They assumed we would stay this way. They don't understand what humans do when we're told we're not good enough. We don't give up. We don't accept our place. We prove everyone wrong. He paused the recording and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there among those countless suns were species that thought humanity was nothing. They would learn differently. Taesung didn't know how or when, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy had just made a very dangerous enemy by treating Earth with such contempt. The journey home took 3 weeks. When they arrived, Earth's military and political leaders were waiting for their report. The news spread quickly. Humanity had been rejected. No protection, no allies, no respect. But something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, people felt anger. Instead of accepting their fate, they began to prepare. In secret facilities across Earth and its moon, engineers and scientists started working on something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The Council had dismissed humanity. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake would be forgetting about them entirely. 3 years passed since humanity's rejection by the Galactic Council. Earth did not waste those years. While the galaxy ignored them, humans built colonies on 6 star systems near their home. New Sol was the largest colony, home to 800,000 people who had left Earth to start fresh lives among the stars. Commander Jiwoo ran the defense force for New Sol. She was young for such responsibility, only 32 years old, but she had proven herself during the colony's early days. Every morning, she reviewed the security reports while drinking coffee and watching the sun rise over the colony's main city. On this particular morning, the report made her put down her coffee. Unknown ships detected at the edge of the system, she read aloud. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kyung, stood beside her. How many? Kyung asked. 15. Large-class vessels, moving toward us at steady speed. Jiwoo pulled up the sensor data on her screen. They're not trying to hide, they want us to see them. Should we contact Earth? Already done, but help is 3 days away, even at maximum speed. Jiwoo stood and grabbed her uniform jacket. Sound general alert. Get everyone to their stations, this doesn't feel like a friendly visit. Within an hour, the unknown ships were close enough to identify. They belonged to the Kresh Empire, one of the species that had laughed at humanity during the council meeting. The Kresh were reptilian creatures, massive and powerful, with scales that could deflect most weapons. Their empire controlled 40 star systems, and they had a reputation for cruelty. A message came through to Jiwoo's command center. A Kresh face appeared on the screen, all teeth and cold eyes. Human colony. This is Fleet Commander Zeth of the Kresh Empire. You are now in territory claimed by the Kresh. Your presence here is illegal. You will surrender immediately and submit to Kresh authority. You have 1 hour to respond. Jiwoo looked at her officers. They all knew what surrender meant. The Kresh used conquered species as slaves, working them in mines and factories until they died. Open a channel, she said. This is Commander Jiwoo of the New Sol Defense Force. This system was unclaimed when we arrived. We have established our colony legally according to our own laws. We will not surrender. Zeth laughed. It was a horrible sound. Your laws mean nothing. The Council offered you no protection. You are alone. Surrender or die. Jiwoo closed the channel and turned to her team. All civilians to the emergency shelters. All defense platforms online. Every ship we have, get them in the air. And someone tell me our weapon status. Kyung shook his head. We have 12 patrol ships and 6 defense platforms. Against 15 Kresh warships, we won't last long. Then we make it count, Jiwoo said. Every minute we hold them is another minute for people to reach safety. The Kresh attacked exactly 1 hour later. Their ships opened fire with plasma weapons that lit up the sky. The defense platforms fired back with missiles and railguns, but it was like throwing rocks at a wall. One by one, the platforms exploded. The patrol ships tried to fight using speed and coordination to avoid the heavy Kresh fire, but they were outmatched. Ji-woo watched from the command center as her forces died protecting the colony. 3 ships gone. Then 5, then 8. The Kresh moved closer to the planet, their weapons targeting the city itself. "Evacuate the command center," she ordered. "Everyone to the underground bunkers. Go." Her officers hesitated. "Commander, you need to come with us." "I will. I just need to send one more message." She waited until they left, then recorded a final transmission to Earth. "This is Commander Ji-woo. New Seoul is falling. The Kresh have overwhelming force. We fought as hard as we could, but it wasn't enough. They're landing troops now. To whoever hears this, don't let them forget us. Don't let our sacrifice mean nothing. Make them pay for what they did here today." She deleted the recording data from the command computers so the Kresh couldn't find it, then ran for the bunkers. But she was too late. Kresh soldiers smashed through the doors, towering over her with their weapons raised. She reached for her sidearm, but something hit her from behind. Everything went dark. When Ji-woo woke up, she was in a cage. Around her were hundreds of other humans, all prisoners. The Kresh had taken the entire colony. Some people were crying. Others sat in shocked silence. A few looked angry enough to fight with their bare hands. A Kresh guard walked past their cages. "Enjoy your rest, humans. Tomorrow you begin working. You will mine ore for the Empire. If you work hard, you might live for years. If you resist, you will die today." New Seoul had fallen in 48 hours. The news reached Earth 3 days later, along with Ji-woo's final message. The president of United Earth, a woman named Hana, called an emergency session of the government. The council chamber was chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others argued for diplomacy. A few wanted to abandon the colonies entirely and pull back to Earth for safety. President Hana stood and silence fell. "The Kresh Empire has attacked our people. They have enslaved 800,000 humans. They did this because the galaxy told them we don't matter. They did this because we have no protection. They did this because they think we are weak." She paused and looked around the room. "Every eye in the galaxy is watching us now. They want to see if we accept this, if we beg for mercy, if we prove that their judgment of humanity was correct." Another representative stood. "What choice do we have? We can't fight the Kresh. They have hundreds of warships, they have planetary weapons. If we attack them, they'll destroy Earth itself." Hana smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Then it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. Activate Protocol Nightfall." Confused voices filled the chamber. "What is Protocol Nightfall?" "Something we've been building since the council rejected us," Hana said. She pressed a button on her podium. A holographic display appeared, showing images of massive shipyards, hidden in asteroid belts on dark moons, in the shadows where the galaxy wasn't looking. "We've been building a fleet," she continued. "Not dozens of ships, thousands. We knew this day would come. We knew that without the Council's protection, we would need to protect ourselves. The Kresh think they can take our people and face no consequences. They're about to learn why you should never underestimate humanity." The display showed ship after ship. They weren't pretty like the alien vessels. They were angular and harsh, built for war. Each one carried weapons that Earth scientists had developed in secret. "How long until the fleet is ready?" someone asked. "It's already ready," Hana said. "We've been ready for months. We were hoping we'd never have to use them." But the Kresh made their choice. She looked directly at the camera, broadcasting her words across Earth. "Send a message to Admiral Tae-sung. Tell him to take the first Armada and show the Kresh what happens when you attack humanity. Tell him to bring our people home." Across the solar system, shipyards that had been hidden for years suddenly came to life. Thousands of warships powered up their engines. Soldiers and pilots rushed to their stations. And in the command ship of the first Armada, Admiral Tae-sung read his orders and smiled grimly. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as weak. The Kresh had attacked thinking there would be no response. They were all about to learn a very painful lesson. Humanity wasn't prey. Humanity was the predator they should have feared from the beginning. The first Armada gathered in the darkness beyond Neptune. 1,200 warships, each one built in secret over 3 years of preparation. Admiral Tae-sung stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution, and watched as the fleet formed into attack formation. He had waited a long time for this moment. He just wished it had come under better circumstances. "All ships report ready," said Captain Dong-hyun, his second-in-command. "We can jump to crash space on your order." Tae-sung nodded slowly. "Before we go, I want to speak to the fleet." He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. On 1,200 ships, crews stopped what they were doing to listen. "This is Admiral Tae-sung. In a few minutes, we will jump into enemy territory. The Kresh Empire thinks they can attack our people without consequences. They think we are weak. They think we will beg for mercy." He paused. "They are wrong. Today we show the galaxy what humanity really is. We are not prey. We are not weak. We are the storm that comes for those who hurt our families. For New Seoul, for our people, for humanity." The channel erupted with cheers. Tae-sung closed his eyes for a moment, then gave the order. All ships jump, space folded around them. Stars stretched and twisted. Then suddenly, they were in Kresh territory in a region called the Crimson Nebula because of the red gas clouds that filled the area, and waiting for them was the Kresh Defense Fleet, 300 massive warships, each one 3 times larger than the biggest human vessel. Their hulls were covered in armor that could withstand nuclear explosions. Their weapons could crack planets. On the Kresh flagship, Commander Zeth looked at his sensors and laughed. 1,200 primitive ships? They think numbers will save them? Target the human fleet. Destroy them all. The Kresh ships opened fire. Massive plasma beams cut through space, bright enough to light up the nebula like daylight. Several human ships exploded immediately, but the rest did something the Kresh didn't expect. "They scattered. What are they doing?" Zeth demanded. "They're breaking formation." "They're running." But they weren't running. They were adapting. On the Retribution, Tae-sung watched his tactical display. "Execute Swarm Pattern 7. All wings engage your targets." The human fleet split into 50 squadrons. Each squadron had 24 ships that moved together like a school of fish. They were fast, much faster than the heavy Kresh vessels, and they were coordinated in ways the Kresh had never seen. Captain Dong-hyun led one such squadron. His destroyer, the Hammer, flew alongside 23 sister ships. They picked a Kresh battleship and attacked from all sides at once. The Kresh ship tried to track them, but human ships were too quick. They fired missiles from one direction, railguns from another, and lasers from a third. The Kresh shields held at first, but then began to flicker under the constant assault. "Target their engines," Dong-hyun ordered. "All ships concentrate fire on the aft section." 24 ships fired as one. The Kresh battleship's engines exploded. The massive vessel went dark and began to drift. "Target eliminated," Dong-hyun reported. "Moving to the next one." Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated 50 times. The Kresh ships were powerful, but they fought alone. Each captain commanded his own vessel with pride, never coordinating with the others. Human ships fought as a single organism, each squadron supporting the others. Lieutenant Mina piloted a small stealth frigate called the Shadow. While the main fleet kept the Kresh busy, she had a special mission. Her ship was coated in materials that made it almost invisible to sensors. She slipped through the chaos of battle, heading straight for Zeth's flagship. Approaching target, she whispered to her crew of 5. "Prepare the infiltration package." The Shadow came up under the Kresh flagship, attaching itself to the hull like a parasite. Mina and her team put on their suits and cut through the outer armor. They found themselves in a maintenance corridor. Alarms were blaring throughout the ship, but nobody was paying attention to one small section of hull. "Move fast," Mina said. "We have 10 minutes before they realize we're here." They ran through the corridors following the ship's layout that human intelligence had stolen months ago. They reached the engineering section and planted charges on the main reactor control system. Not enough to destroy the ship, just enough to shut it down. "Charges set," Mina reported. "Extraction in 30 seconds. They ran back to the Shadow and undocked just as the charges exploded. Zeth's flagship went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, but the main power was gone. The largest ship in the Kresh fleet was now a floating piece of metal. Zeth stared at his dead control panels in disbelief. "What happened? Report." "Sabotage, Commander," one of his officers said. "Someone was aboard. They destroyed the reactor controls. We need at least an hour to restore power." "An hour?" Zeth looked at the battle raging outside his windows. His fleet was losing. 200 ships remained, but they were dying fast. The humans were everywhere, moving like demons, striking from impossible angles. Signal the fleet. Full retreat. All ships fall back to the homeworld. The surviving Kresh ships turned and ran. The human fleet pursued them for a while, destroying a few more, but then Tae-sung called them back. Don't chase them too far, he ordered. Let them run home. Let them tell their leaders what happened here. Dong-hyun looked at the tactical display. Admiral, we've lost 83 ships, but the Kresh lost 217. Their fleet is broken, Tae-sung nodded. And now we finish this. Set course for the Kresh homeworld. All ships, maximum speed. We're going to make them an offer. The Armada jumped to the Kresh home system 2 hours later. The planet below was massive, with 3 moons and cities that covered entire continents. Billions of Kresh lived there, going about their lives, probably not even knowing their fleet had just been destroyed. Tae-sung opened a communication channel that broadcast to every device on the planet. This is Admiral Tae-sung of the Human Armada. Your fleet attacked our colony. You took our people as slaves. This was a mistake. I am now going to give you one chance to correct this mistake. Return every human you have taken unharmed. You have 6 hours. If you refuse, you will face consequences beyond your imagination. The Kresh leadership responded quickly. The current Empress herself appeared on the screen, her scales shimmering with anger. You dare threaten the Kresh homeworld? We have planetary defenses. We have armies. You cannot touch us, Tae-sung sighed. I was hoping you would be reasonable. I gave you a chance. Remember that. He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. Launch the stellar packages. 3 ships broke away from the Armada. They were different from the warships, larger and stranger. They moved to positions around the Kresh sun, forming a triangle. Then they activated. The technology was experimental, based on theories about manipulating stellar matter. Human scientists had discovered that with the right energy patterns, you could affect how a star behaved. You could make it burn brighter or dimmer. You could even threaten to make it collapse. The Kresh sun began to dim. Slowly at first, then faster. The light reaching the planet decreased. Temperatures started to drop. On the surface, Kresh citizens looked up at their sky in horror as their sun faded. Tae-sung opened the channel again. I will ask one more time. Return our people, or your sun becomes a footnote in galactic history. This time panic filled the Empress's voice. Stop, we will return them. We will return all of them. Just stop what you are doing. You have 3 hours, Tae-sung said. If every human is not aboard our ships by then, the dimming continues. It took 2 hours and 45 minutes. The Kresh returned every human they had taken, including Commander Jiwoo and all 800,000 colonists from New Seoul. They were loaded onto transport ships and sent to the human fleet. When the last human was safely aboard, Tae-sung ordered the stellar packages to disengage. The Kresh sun slowly returned to normal brightness. But the message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy entire star systems if pushed far enough. As the Armada prepared to return home, Tae-sung recorded a message that he knew would spread across the galaxy. To all species watching this, humanity came to the Galactic Council seeking peace. We were rejected. We were told we didn't matter. The Kresh believed that. They attacked us. They enslaved our people. Now their fleet is destroyed and their sun has felt our touch. Let this be a lesson. We prefer peace. But if you force us to war, we will show you what happens when you underestimate humanity. We are not prey. We never were, and we never will be. News of the Battle of Crimson Nebula spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species heard the same impossible story. The humans, those primitive newcomers the Council had dismissed, had destroyed a Kresh fleet. More than that, they had threatened a star. They had made the Kresh sun dim with their technology. Fear rippled through the galactic community. If humans could do that to the Kresh, what could they do to everyone else? The Galactic Council called an emergency session. All 12 member species gathered on HFY once again. But this time something was different. The chamber's sensors detected ships in orbit. Human ships, 6 separate armadas, each one positioned near a different council member's homeworld. Not attacking, not threatening, just there, watching. Councillor Rexath, the Virex who had laughed at humanity 3 years ago, was the first to speak. His voice shook with rage. The humans have committed an act of war. They have broken every galactic convention. They threatened to destroy a star which could have destabilized an entire region of space. This cannot stand. The musical voice of the Lumini representative added, They have shown themselves to be dangerous and unpredictable. They must be stopped before they threaten more systems. A third counselor from the crystalline Threnai species spoke more carefully. Before we make any decisions, perhaps we should hear what the humans have to say. Ambassador Yuna has requested to address this council. Rexath slammed one of his claws on his platform. She has no right. Humanity is not a council member. Nevertheless, the Threnai counselor said they are here. And they have 6 armadas in our space. I suggest we listen. The holographic display activated and Yuna's face appeared. She looked older than she had 3 years ago. Harder. Behind her on the display, anyone watching could see the silhouettes of warships against the stars. Counselors, Yuna began. Her voice was calm but cold. 3 years ago I stood before you asking for cooperation, for friendship, for a place in the galactic community. You laughed at us. You called us primitive. You told us we didn't matter. You offered us no protection under galactic law. She paused. So we learned to protect ourselves. When the Kresh attacked our colony and enslaved our people, where was the council? Where was galactic justice? Where were the great civilizations that claimed to maintain peace? Another pause. You were silent. Because we didn't matter. Rexath tried to interrupt. You cannot blame the council for... I am not finished. Yuna's voice cut through his words like a knife. The Kresh attacked us because you gave them permission. Not with words, but with your dismissal. You told the galaxy that humanity had no protection. You told them we were prey. So they hunted us. The council chamber was silent now. Every counselor watched the human ambassador with new attention. We fought back, Yuna continued. We rescued our people. We defeated a fleet that you all feared. And yes, we threatened a star. Do you know why? Because the Kresh refused to return our people. They believed, just as you believed, that human lives don't matter. Her eyes hardened. They were wrong. And now you are afraid. Good. You should be. The Threnai counselor, whose name was Vayana, spoke gently. What do you want, Ambassador Yuna? Why are you here? I am here because humanity is giving you one chance to correct your mistake, Yuna said. We do not want to be your enemy. We never did. But we will not be dismissed again. We will not be prey. If the galaxy cannot accept us as equals, then we will make our own way. And any species that attacks us will learn what the Kresh learned. Rexath's anger exploded. This is blackmail. You threaten us while your warships surround our worlds. Our ships are there as a reminder, Yuna replied. A reminder that you are not the only powers in the galaxy anymore. A reminder that humanity can reach you, just as you can reach us. We prefer peace, counselor, but we are prepared for war. Another counselor spoke up from a species called the Drell. What are your terms? What does humanity want? Yuna's expression didn't change. Full council membership with voting rights, mutual defense treaties, recognition of human territorial claims, reparations from the Kresh Empire for the attack on New Sol, and a guarantee written into galactic law that any unprovoked attack on humanity will be considered an attack on the entire council. Impossible, shouted Rexath. It took my species 5,000 years to earn a council seat. You expect us to give you one after 3 years? We don't expect anything, Yuna said quietly. We are offering you a choice. Accept our terms and humanity becomes your ally. Reject them and humanity becomes something else, something you will have to deal with eventually. The Lumini representative spoke, their voice filled with worry. You would wage war against the entire galaxy? If necessary. Yuna let those words hang in the air. But ask yourselves, do you really want to find out? You've seen what we did to the Kresh. We had 1,200 ships in that battle. Do you know how many ships humanity has built in total? She smiled slightly. Neither do we. Our shipyards are still producing them. Every day, more ships, more weapons, more soldiers ready to defend our worlds. Vayana, the Threnai counselor, spoke again. She was old, even by her species' standards, and she had wisdom that others lacked. This council made a mistake 3 years ago. We judged humanity too quickly. We saw them as primitive and assumed they would stay that way. We were wrong. She looked at the other counselors. We have a choice now. We can make humanity our enemy and fight a war that will destroy both sides. Or we can accept that the galaxy has changed and adapt to it. Adapt? Rexath was almost screaming now. They are forcing us to accept them through threat of violence. Yes, Vayana said simply. Just as many of us forced our way into galactic society long ago. The strong have always dictated terms to the weak. We simply forgot what it's like to not be the strongest anymore. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to form a military coalition to crush humanity before they became more dangerous. Others argued that humanity had only defended itself against an unprovoked attack. A few saw opportunity in forming an alliance with this aggressive new power. Finally, Vayana called for a vote. All in favor of accepting humanity's terms and granting them full council membership. 7 councilors voted yes. 3 voted no. 2 abstained. It was enough. Una received the decision aboard the diplomatic vessel that had brought her to HFY. She immediately opened a secure channel to Earth, where President Hana was waiting. They accepted, Una said, all of our terms. We're full council members. We have protection under galactic law, and the creche will pay reparations. Hana smiled. Well done, both you and Admiral Taesung. You've given humanity what it needed. Respect through strength. What about the armadas? Una asked. The council is very nervous about 6 fleets sitting near their homeworlds. Let them be nervous for a while, Hana said. They need to understand that we're serious. We'll withdraw the ships in a few days once the treaties are signed. But Una, make sure they know if anyone attacks us again, those ships will return, and next time they won't just watch. The treaties were signed 1 week later in a ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy. Humanity officially became the 13th member of the Galactic Council. The image of Una shaking hands or claws or tentacles with the various council members spread to every civilized world. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity hadn't been invited to join the council. They had forced their way in. They had proven that they were too dangerous to ignore and too powerful to dismiss. In bars and gathering places across the galaxy, species that had once laughed at humanity now spoke of them with fear and respect. Some saw them as saviors who had stood up to the creche. Others saw them as a threat that would eventually turn on everyone. Only time would tell which view was correct. Admiral Taesung watched the treaty ceremony from his flagship. The Retribution was heading back to Earth, along with the rest of the First Armada. They had done what they set out to do. They had rescued their people and shown the galaxy that humanity could not be pushed around. Do you think they'll keep the peace? Captain Dongyun asked. Taesung shrugged. Some will. Others will test us eventually. But that's fine. We'll be ready. He looked out at the stars. The galaxy wanted to know what humanity was capable of. Now they know. We're not the prey they thought we were. We're not the primitive species they dismissed. We are humanity. And we survive. 25 years passed. A generation grew up knowing that humanity was a major power in the galaxy. Children learned in school about the Battle of Crimson Nebula, the way previous generations learned about ancient Earth wars. The story of how humanity forced its way onto the Galactic Council became legend, but legends and reality are different things. Admiral Jiwoo, who had been Commander Jiwoo during the fall of New Seoul, now stood on the bridge of the Unity, flagship of the Joint Galactic Defense Force. She was 57 years old, her hair showing gray but her eyes were still sharp, and the crew around her was mixed. Humans worked alongside Kresh, Vrex, Lumini, and a dozen other species. Contact on sensors, reported Lieutenant Minho, a young human officer. Unknown vessels entering the border zone. Configuration doesn't match any known species. Battle stations, Jiwoo ordered. She had learned to always be cautious. Communications, try to make contact. Let's see if they're friendly. A Vrex officer named Tikrix worked the communications console. No response to standard greetings. They're arming weapons. All ships defensive formation, Jiwoo commanded. The Unity was leading a fleet of 30 vessels, half human and half from other council species. 25 years ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Now it was routine. The unknown ships attacked without warning. They were raiders from beyond council space, pirates who thought they could prey on border colonies. They had chosen the wrong target. The Joint Defense Force had trained together for years. They moved as one unit, combining human tactics with alien technology. The battle lasted 18 minutes. Not a single council ship was damaged. The raiders fled back into deep space. Secure from battle stations, Jiwoo announced. All ships report in. She allowed herself a small smile. 25 years ago, half these species would have refused to fight alongside humans. Now they trusted each other with their lives. Back on Earth, in the capital city of New Geneva, the Museum of the First Armada attracted visitors from across the galaxy. The original ships that had fought at Crimson Nebula were displayed there, preserved forever. Young Kresh children stood next to human children, both groups looking up at the warships with awe. One ship in particular drew the most attention, the Retribution, Admiral Tae-sung's flagship. It sat in the center of the main hall, still bearing the scars of battle. A holographic display next to it told the story of that day when 1,200 human ships changed the galaxy forever. An elderly man stood looking at the ship. He had white hair and walked with a slight limp. Most visitors didn't recognize him, but those who knew history understood. This was Admiral Tae-sung himself, now retired but still alive at 78 years old. A young Threnai student approached him nervously. Threnai were crystalline beings who communicated partly through light patterns. This one's colors showed respect and curiosity. "Excuse me, sir. Did you really threaten to destroy the Kresh sun?" Tae-sung smiled gently. "I made them believe I would. There's a difference. The technology could dim a star, but destroying one? That would have required far more power than we had. But the Kresh didn't know that. Sometimes in war, what your enemy believes is more important than what's actually true." "That seems like lying," the young Threnai said. "It was," Tae-sung admitted. "War's full of lies. It's ugly and brutal and brings out the worst in us. That's why we work so hard now to avoid it. That's why humans and Kresh serve together on ships like the Unity. We learned what war costs. We'd rather not pay that price again." Another visitor approached, this one an adult Kresh. His scales were marked with military insignia. "Admiral Tae-sung, I am Commander Roth of the Kresh Defense Forces. My father served in the fleet you destroyed at Crimson Nebula. He died in that battle." Tae-sung's expression became serious. "I am sorry for your loss. War makes orphans of us all." Roth nodded slowly. "My father wrote a letter before he died. He said the humans fought with honor. He said they could have destroyed our homeworld but chose mercy. Because of that mercy, I grew up. I had a life, and now I serve alongside humans in the Defense Force." He extended his clawed hand. "Thank you for showing restraint that day." Tae-sung shook the Kresh officer's hand. "Thank you for choosing to build peace rather than seek revenge." In the council chambers on Axios Prime, Ambassador Yuna, now Supreme Counselor Yuna, led a debate on admitting a new species to the galactic community. They were called the Peril, and they had just achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology was primitive. Their weapons were basic. Their society was divided into competing nations. It reminded Yuna of humanity 25 years ago. "We should reject them," Counselor Rexath said. He was old now, his mandibles moving slower than before. "They are not ready. They need centuries of development before they can join civilized species." Yuna looked at him calmly. "That's what you said about humanity." "And I was right to be concerned," Rexath replied. "Look what happened, war, destruction, stars being threatened." "And look what happened after," Yuna countered. "Peace, cooperation, growth. The Peril deserved the same chance we had. The same chance every species here received once upon a time." She looked around the chamber. "I propose we offer them protection under galactic law. We teach them. We trade with them. We give them the support that humanity never received. Let's see if we can welcome a new species without forcing them to build an armada first." The vote was close, but it passed. The Peril would receive council protection and support. They would be given time to develop at their own pace. And if anyone attacked them, the full might of the council would respond. It was a new approach, one born from the lessons humanity had taught the galaxy. In a research station orbiting a blue giant star, Dr. Seok-jin worked with a team of scientists from 6 different species. They were studying stellar dynamics, trying to understand how stars aged and died. But their real goal was to find ways to extend star life, to give dying suns a few million more years. The technology that had once threatened to destroy the Kresh sun was now being used to save stars across the galaxy. Seok-jin, who had once designed weapons, now designed tools of preservation. It felt like redemption. "We're getting good results," said his assistant, a Lumini named Photix. "The test star is showing increased stability." "Good," Seok-jin said. "There are 12 dying stars in council space. If we can extend their lives, we save trillions of beings who live on planets around those stars. That's better than any weapon I ever built." Back in New Geneva in the presidential hall, The current President Hansu addressed a group of graduating officers from the Unified Space Academy. The academy trained officers from all council species, teaching them to work together, to trust each other, to defend the galaxy as one. 25 years ago, Hansu said, humanity was alone. We were dismissed. We were attacked. We fought back not because we wanted war, but because we had no choice. We showed the galaxy our strength. But that was only the beginning of our story. He gestured to the mixed group of graduates before him, human, Kresh, Vrex, Threnai, and others, all wearing the same uniform. This is the real victory. Not the battles we won, but the peace we built. You are proof that former enemies can become friends, that species who once feared each other can trust each other, that the galaxy can be better than it was. The graduates stood at attention, proud and ready. They would serve on ships throughout council space, protecting trade routes, responding to disasters, defending against pirates and raiders. They were the future. In his small home on the coast of what used to be called Korea, Admiral Tae-sung sat on his porch and watched the sunset. Ships passed overhead, heading to and from the orbital stations. Some were human. Some were alien. All were welcome. His granddaughter, a girl of 12 named Nari, sat beside him. "Grandfather, my teacher says you're a hero. She says you saved humanity." Tae-sung laughed softly. "Heroes are what we call people in stories. In real life, I was just a soldier doing his job." "But you did save us, didn't you? You made the galaxy respect us." "I made them fear us," Tae-sung corrected. "Admiral Jiwoo and others made them respect us. There's a difference. Fear keeps enemies away. Respect builds friendships. I gave humanity time and safety, but the people who came after me gave humanity something more valuable. A place in the galaxy as partners, not just as warriors." Nari thought about that. "Do you think there will be more wars?" "Probably," Tae-sung admitted. "The galaxy is a big place with many species. Conflicts will happen, but I hope they can be solved without the kind of violence we used. I hope future generations are smarter than mine was. But if there is a war, we'll be ready, right?" "The Armada still exists," "Yes," Tae-sung said. "The Armada still exists. Smaller now, but always ready. That's the lesson, Nari. We hope for peace, but we prepare for war. We trust our allies, but we maintain our strength. The galaxy learned not to underestimate humanity. We must never forget why." Above them, stars began to appear as the sun set. Each one represented countless worlds, countless species, countless stories. And somewhere among those stars, human ships patrolled alongside alien vessels, working together to keep the peace. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. They saw primitive apes who barely knew how to leave their own planet. They laughed at human weapons and human ambitions.